Hello and welcome to Vaccinate India. This is a program that we do with our partners in Google. It is a program that is so important for people across the country. The threat of COVID is not over, and the key message which we try and send is vaccinate, vaccinate, vaccinate. And we've got some great news on that front today. India now has a new vaccine. It's a vaccine which can be administered to children. So India's first children's vaccine to be administered to kids above the age of 12. This is going to have potentially a transformative impact on school-going children as soon as it is administered in large numbers. We are talking about the new Zydus Covid vaccine, the Zydus Cadila Covid vaccine. And before we actually come to that, and a very special interview with Sharvil Patel, the Managing Director of Zydus Cadila, let's give you an overall idea of where we stand as far as vaccination is concerned in India today, the vaccine statistics, and then talk a little bit about the new vaccine as well for children. Well, it has gone up now. The total vaccine shots given, 57.6 crore in the country. It's been going up gently. It had came down in a couple of days. But again, as we've been mentioning, we need to have a far higher number of vaccines which are administered across the country. And here's why. This is India's vaccination equation. This is what we try and tell you every single week on this program. Now the target is 60% of our population needs to have both doses by December 2021. The end, why? Because if we do have 2 doses administered, then it basically means that there would be a relative amount of protection, hospitalizations would drop, people would be far less infected, we would all be much safer, which is why vaccination is so important. But in order to get to 60% of the eligible population being vaccinated with both doses by December 2021, we need a required vaccination rate of 10.6 million doses a day, right? At the current rate, and this is the number right here on top, at the current rate we are nowhere close to that. So it just come back to me full screen for a moment. At the current rate of vaccination, only 37% of the population will be vaccinated by December 2021. Our target again 60%, at this rate 37%, and here's why. The required vaccination rate per day 10.6 million, the actual vaccination day rate in the last 7 days 5.8 million, the daily shortfall in just the last 7 days 4.8 million, right? So the actual vaccinations which took place on the 20th of August, that's what we're looking at as far as this program is concerned, 5.5 million, the shortfall 5.1 million. So again, in the last 7 days 5.8 million was the average. That's a shortfall of 4.8. This 10.6 million doses a day is the target in India to get to this 60% of the population with both doses by December 2021. But what we're going to do now is actually take a look at the overall situation as far as the new vaccine is concerned. Now let's give you a few details of that. Now this is India clearing a vaccine for children above the age of 12. It's a Zydus Cadila vaccine. It's the ZyCoV-D vaccine. It's by Zydus Cadila. And let's give you a few details. Emergency use authorization was given on the 20th of August. It's a 3-dose vaccine, and that's interesting because thus far we've got only 2-dose vaccines in India. We'll explain in our interview with Sharvil Patel, the MD, why exactly that is the case. There's a 4-week interval between each dose. The vaccine is needle-free and is to be administered intradermally through the skin. Now this is actually quite interesting, and again we'll try and tell you why exactly that is the case. But let's go across now to Sharvil Patel, the MD of Zydus Cadila, who joins us at the stage. Thanks very much, Mr. Patel, for being with us, and it is absolutely fantastic as far as our vaccination drive is concerned. How soon before we have the new vaccine in the market?
So I think that's an important question for us now. We've gone through the first leg of getting through the emergency use. So we started building a new plant for this last year in April, and we are hoping as of we speak today that we will now be starting to produce at large scales from the month of August.
Right.
Looking at the cycle that goes through, we believe by some part of October, we can steadily deliver about 1 crore doses in a month. In this month of September will be the initial days where we look to deliver between 20 to 40 lakh doses. But our full scaled up facilities will then start delivering 1 crore doses. Obviously, this is subject to the clearance from CDL and other places also.
Right.
But that's the current plan, that hopefully if everything goes as per plan and clockwork, by late September we can start delivering.
And how much is it going to cost?
So it's a unique platform. As I said, while this platform we have never had existing capacities for, so we have built a new plant to make the vaccine. We have built a drug product facility to fill the vaccine. This is also a unique vaccine because it doesn't go through a normal injection, but it's a special device that is a needle-free application. One important part of delivering the dose and creating lesser vaccine hesitancy is that this application is needle-free and it only applies to the upper skin. So it's just a small dot that gets created on the top of the skin. So all of that also had to be invested in terms of getting the device, which is from a partner in the US known as PharmaJet, which is an approved device in the world. And then we had to get applicators which are manufactured in Singapore and get them assembled in India. So a lot of work has gone in, and that's the kind of investment that has been put into it. But I think end of the day we understand that for a global vaccine supply, we need to make the vaccine equitable and rightly priced so that it's affordable for a lot of people. I mean, our current mindset is always been so. When we launch HCQ or we launch Remdesivir, our belief has been that you have to make the products much more accessible, especially in these trying times. And I think our endeavor will be the same to do so. But at the same time, we obviously have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that we don't go under the water while doing so.
Now, whatever you've tested so far provides efficacy against Delta, right? And that is important because it's a newer vaccine, and you've got the data from Delta to suggest how effective you are. So could you give us an idea of the size of the trial thus far?
So our trial has been now done as of now in 28,000 volunteers from all age groups from 12 to about 65. In the 12 to 18 age group, we have now delivered the dosing to 1,400 volunteers. So it's one of the large population of adolescent children whom we have dosed the product also. And as you said, for us, the event data or the efficacy data it's the efficacy data of the April, May, June period of this year, which is when predominantly only the Delta variant was present. Even in all our gene sequencing for all the positive cases that we have seen, in the subset that we took, all of them were Delta variant. So I would say it is a proper reflection of a large trial which is specifically related to the current virus of concern, which is the Delta variant.
So what is your message to parents who would be watching this broadcast and wondering if this is safe for their children? What would that be?
So 3-4 things related to this. One is this platform is devoid of any vector-based immunity. Many vaccines are created when they have other vectors that create an immune response. This is a very native in that sense that it is only the plasmid sequence that is creating the antibodies, and there is no other booster or any other addition that is made to the vaccine to create any kind of reaction. So I think that is why it's very safe. The second part of it is, as I said, it's a needle-free application. So the lot of vaccine hesitancy or injection, when 25% of the population is worried about either seeing blood or seeing a prick for a needle, and it's obviously accentuated for a younger population. So I think that is definitely going to be something that is going to be important. In terms of only data which I can speak about is that, when we did our trial on such a large number of people, we didn't have any dropouts for the want of taking the vaccine. So we didn't find people who had wanted to drop out because they didn't feel comfortable with the first dose or the second dose or the third dose. So that gives us some assurance that people were, at least people who participated in the trial, have gone through smoothly. The second is, even in the age group of 12 to 18, we didn't see dropouts. The only challenge we faced there is when we had to collect blood. That became the harder part because you use a needle when you do that. But beyond that, the trial was successful with that. And when we have shown the significant amount of safety data to be clear that we didn't show any severe side effects, no deaths related to the vaccine now. And also our mild side effects were equal on the placebo versus the vaccine.
Yeah.
So I think all of that gives me confidence to say that this is definitely a very safe vaccine. I strongly also want to say that while this is a very safe vaccine, we still all need to, as a vaccine manufacturer, do a lot more work to overcome the Delta variant, because we've solved for the problem of, the moderate disease, which we have seen 100% efficacy, or deaths where we've seen 100% efficacy. But the escaping of the Delta variant to the mild infections is something that we still all need to answer for and solve.
Sure.
And that's the work that the company is also doing.
So what about phase 3 trial data being submitted for peer review, and you'll also have to submit it sooner than later, perhaps to, let's say, the World Health Organization for it to be on the approved list, because children will be traveling internationally with their parents as well, and that becomes important.
So there are, again, everything it requires time and effort. One part of this is that when you talk about a full phase 3, you need to do a follow-up almost for 6 months until you can have that data. So it's nothing that can happen overnight, because obviously we are just about to complete all the cohorts. Then we need to do a follow-up that ends at 6 months, and then obviously we have to prepare for it. So obviously it's in the plan to make it happen, but for it to happen over the next 3 to 4 months is highly unlikely, for the very reason that no publications will not be taken unless the full data is created.
Correct.
It was very different in the earlier phases when there were no vaccines and you could do interim work and put it. But today the expectation from a regulator, whether it is in US, Europe or India, is that they need a larger set of data to bring the next vaccine out. So I think we will fall in that bracket to see that we need to do a lot more data creation before we can do the full publication.
So, and when would that be in terms of more data? How many more months?
It's difficult to say, but at least 6 months, if not more, but it will at least take 4 to 6 months.
So you're now cleared for the Indian market. When would the first of the 3 doses become available in sizable numbers?
So if everything goes well in sizable numbers, because we need product release also and the distribution, and we still need to do with the regular, October would be a fair assumption that by middle to end October, we start hitting 1 crore plus doses. But I think we should hopefully start seeing by mid to end September starting of delivery of certain number of doses.
And you've stockpiled a certain number of doses, right?
So, it's again, everything has to go through a process. We need our plants audited now. They've gone through an initial audit for when we did the clinical trial, but now we have 2 new facilities which need to go through the audit and the regulatory process. So I think that requires time. And then, as you know, because it's an injectable product, we need 14 days sterility in our plants, and then we need 14 days at Kasoli CDL sites to do. So itself is a 28-day cycle. So I think there's no answer to this or no quick fix to this. So I think that's the only reason why we can see a middle to end September start. And because our sites need to be approved because they're new and they need to see at least 3 batches of sufficient consistent production, which we also have to do. I think all of that will lead to an October timeline.
So why does this vaccine need 3 doses and not 2 like the others?
So I think every vaccine, so again, it's when we did our trials in the early phase 1 side of it, we believe that what you need to do is make sure you give the maximum amount of tolerable dose, which gives you a good immune response. We also believe that a cellular response or adaptive response is very critical in terms of the T cell response. And for that, when we saw our initial data, we saw that the 3rd dose definitely added significantly more value in terms of the adaptive response and better neutralizing antibodies. And so that's why our dosing is a 3-dose regimen. The other reason for it is because it's an intradermal delivery. You cannot give more than a certain amount in the skin at a point in time. So while we would have loved to give a higher amount of dosing, but it was practically not possible because of the dose delivery that is there. In injection, you can put up to a certain amount of volume. In a intradermal application, you can only put 100 microliters, which is only a drop.
Right.
So I think it's to do with the platform, and it's to do with obviously the data that we got to see. We couldn't concentrate it further because it became difficult to do. So I think all of that is leading for it to be a 3-dose, in the sense it's 3 times you need to take it.
All right, Sharvil. Well, that's fantastic news. It's great to see that children, will be much more protected when they're back in school. I'd like to thank you very much for joining us. We're going to take a short break. More coming up. Welcome back. It's been a great week, as we've said, as far as vaccines in India are concerned. There's going to be a new vaccine out there soon, the Zydus Cadila vaccine, which will be administered to children or can be administered to children above the ages of 12. Joining us now, Professor Anupam Sibal, Group Medical Director and the Senior Pediatrician at the Apollo Hospitals Group. Thanks very much, Dr. Sibal, for being with us. So, we've spoken about vaccines for children how many times? About 100. But on the 101st time, I think we've got great news. It's finally here. Your first thoughts on this particular vaccine, 3 doses, what will it mean for children?
I think it's absolutely brilliant news on many counts. Firstly, we've all been waiting for a pediatric vaccine, and of course, 12 to 18 is just 1/3 of pediatrics, but it's still significant. And let's not forget that 20 crore children is what we are talking about with just this age group. So we are delighted with this news. The second, which we're very proud of, the fact that DBT, Cadila came together, and congratulations to Pankaj Bhai and Sharvil Bhai for this collaboration that we actually have first in the world, plasmid DNA technology. It's a platform that hasn't been used before, so that shows our strength in terms of innovation. The third, the fact that it doesn't need a needle is great, because as we all know, there are a lot of people, a lot of kids who have this concern about a needle. So the fact that we are not actually going to have to use a needle is great. Of course, the downer is the fact 3 doses, which means, but as Sharvil Bhai explained, the logic, and of course they're going to try for a 2-dose trial, is the fact that you have to call someone thrice, which, as we know, is a bit of a challenge. But all in all, I think it's brilliant. Now we await clearance to be able to administer this. And of course, I might hasten to add here that children do remain a lower priority. And as you rightly said, the idea really is to get adults vaccinated. But slight point that I would like to highlight, Vishnu, when you say 60% of the population at 31st December, I want to quote our data. And this is based on 28,000 plus healthcare workers across 20 different cities in India. We found the difference between the second dose and the
first one.
And 1 dose, just 1% increase. So which means that even a single dose provides pretty significant protection against hospitalization, against ICU care and death. And that, I think, is really, really important. And that's the message that we need to give out, because people still say, I got vaccinated, I got the infection. Nobody anywhere in the world said that, you're going to get 100% protection from a COVID infection. But if you can stay out of hospital, you don't go into ICU and you don't die, then the purpose is served. And that very significantly happens even with 1 dose. And that is an important message. So, even if we get...
Doctor, I'm a bit confused on this. I've gone through your studies and it's fantastic. But the other part is, in the UK and in other places, they're saying that there is a 33% efficacy rate with just 1 dose of, let's say, Covishield, right? Whereas if you get 2, you're well above 60%. So then...
but again, Vishnu, the point I'm trying to say here is about hospitalization. And I think that's the goal. The system gets challenged when you have hospitalization, you have ICU care. Clearly 2 doses is better than 1. There is no dispute about that. And we'd love to vaccinate everyone with 2 doses as soon as we can. But let's also be realistic. Consistently vaccinating more than 5 million a day, no other country has achieved. The United States, the best they did was 4.8 million in 1 day. And yes, we want to get to 10 million a day. But the very fact that we're hitting 5.8 million, as you showed in the last week, and we can consistently go up to 6.5, 7. We have done 9 million on 1 day. So
no, but Dr. Sibal, that's just the point. India doesn't lack the ability of administering the vaccine. The problem is getting the vaccines. And that's been integral, which is why we are at this stage going to fall short of that target by the end of December. And all that means is people need to be more careful. There could be more people falling sick, and we're going to have to stick on to wearing masks for several months more. I just wish we had more vaccines, and I think you would, as a doctor, agree that if there are more vaccines, we would deal with administering them in a better way. But let me ask you, sir, a question about this particular vaccine. There's no needle, so everybody would be asking, children perhaps watching this, so how does it work? I mean, is it going to hurt?
No, it shouldn't really hurt. And, the first thing is the needle phobia goes. So that automatically lowers the concern that any individual has. And we all know that pain depends a lot on perception. You can have 2 different individuals. You can get one to deep breathe, to think about something pleasant. They don't feel the needle. Someone who's really anxious, got his muscle tight, feels the needle. So the very fact there is no needle automatically calms you down. And the second thing is, the way it's administered with this technology, the PharmaJet technology, means that it is going to get dispersed into the intradermal layer, the layer just below the skin. It's not going to cause pain. And I think that in itself is very reassuring. But totally agree with you in terms of the point that we want a 6th vaccine and a 7th vaccine licensed so that we can really get to that figure of 30 crores a day.
I'm just trying to understand, Dr. Sibul, do you think if this is safer, the way in which this drug is administered, could we have a system where this could be administered in schools?
Well, I think if we look at, and clearly the authorities are going to be studying this now, if we look at what happened with the adult vaccination, we started off with a particular plan in terms of healthcare workers, frontline and so on and so forth. And then it was opened up and we've had vaccines administered in malls. We've had vaccines administered drive-through. We've had vaccines administered in large spaces. And there is no reason to believe why this vaccine could not be administered in school, because logistically it's a lot easier.
Exactly.
For parents, they're very familiar with the school. The kids come in and you know how it is, peer pressure, 5 kids come in, another 5 will come in, the hesitancy goes away. So from a logistic point of view, it makes a lot more sense to do this in school. But like I said, at this point in time, the priority is adults. So most of these vaccines are going to go to adults because kids do remain much lower on the risk stratification when it comes to getting serious COVID.
Doctor, one last question. A lot of people have been asking, feeding mothers and vaccination, is there a problem? Should breastfeeding mothers vaccinate?
Okay, definitely breastfeeding mothers should take the shot. It'll be great for them to have the protection, and also they might pass on some protection to the baby. Second, pregnant ladies get the vaccine. These were 2 questions that were unanswered, but I think we have the answers. So anyone who's expecting can take the shot. If you're breastfeeding, please go ahead and take the shot.
Great. Wonderful speaking to you as usual. Thanks very much for being with us, Dr. Sibul. So vaccine for kids, it's a reality now. It needs to come into the market in numbers. 3 doses. Shouldn't be painful at all. It's a different kind of different way of administering the vaccine. Sounds pretty exciting. Time now for the short break. More coming up.